Hi, welcome to Exploring the Illusion of Free Will. My name is George Ortega, and the title of this episode is Free Will, and we got you now, President-elect Trump, Part 1. This is going to be first of a four-part series, and, because this is also going to be broadcast on Nick's Manhattan show, which is going to ideally be an hour, we're just going to tape through an hour and just divide this into whatever, so whatever. All right, so let's get right to this. So, from a free will perspective, probably a lot of people are saying, well, why did this happen? Whose fault is it? Is it whatever? Just questions like that. And I'm tired because I got maybe three, four. This is we're taping this November 9th. So we just found out the results of the election early in the morning. I don't know, 1, 2 o'clock. Maybe 3 o'clock in the morning. So anyway, this is 11 o'clock. I didn't get much sleep. So anyway, so Trump, was elected president, and the New York Times, CNN, all these major media networks had Clinton's chances at 95%. I think the lowest was this political site 538 that had Hillary at 80%. So this blew everybody's mind. And so then to the extent that it's really not so wonderful to have somebody who mocks disabled people and assaults women and just incites violence as our president, to the extent that that's bad, we want to, the question becomes, why would this happen? And with the free will perspective, we blame, the Trump supporters. We blame ourselves, perhaps, for not having seen this. Or this is it's so surreal. It took everybody some. But the idea is so fine. This actually wasn't our fault. It just so all right, so 80-90% of us believe in God, right? I believe in God because God, the universe, synonymous. Einstein kind of had the same view. And I can no longer believe, not just because of Trump and this, but for example, I'm wearing this sweatshirt now, which is it's about how we treat farm animals, which is so cruel. And, so I guess a lot of times I put everything in perspective. I kind of I do a lot of work on happiness. I used to do a happiness show. I lead happiness groups once a week here in White Plains and once a month in Manhattan. Happiness is really important. So in framing this and trying to figure it out, well, the idea is we want to we want to keep our mood up. But anyway, the idea is from the perspective of goodness, because goodness is what creates happiness. You have God, who most of us believe that God is all good. That's what, again, 80-90% of us here in the United States are believe in God or a higher power. All right, so, based not just on Trump, but on how we treat animals, God, apparently, who's in control of everything, can't be all good because everything's his doing. And then, of course, the big question, that supersedes every other question is well, why does God do things like that? If you're God and you're all powerful, if everything that happens is up to you, why would you afflict not just these farm animals, but the poor people in all other countries? Just people in general. We get ultimately something. Some of us maybe are well, no, nobody escapes pain. Why did God create pain and all? But that's I guess for another show. But anyway, so let's get back to Trump. So let's try. This is new territory for anyone. The predictions. Here's what I predict is going to happen. There's a saying, a Greek saying, that goes to the effect of those who the gods wish to destroy, they first raise up. Okay, and that means that sometimes a person is elevated to a position of power and stature, whatever, and then the gods come in and just demolish them. And that's the only thing that I can imagine it explains what happened. So politically, I guess what will happen is because I guess the Republican Party is divided into those who are for Trump, you know, and then I think a substantial portion of Republicans who are conservatives who are really actually not very for Trump at all. So I imagine there would be a coalition between them and the Democratic Party to conspire to kind of like just not allow Trump to do anything, you know, especially anything harmful. So that's like the politics of it. I'm guessing what will also happen is that, you know, Trump has a lot of businesses. These businesses are going to be run by his kids, but, you know, as payback, you know, because like this world runs according to the belief in free will, and there is payback as payback. I imagine his companies are going to be boycotted, you know, that, you know, perhaps bankrupt. I mean, like, and I think the third component in terms of that is that Trump will probably be sued, you know, just by a lot of different people. His companies would, because like I guess like as a president, he actually may be protected from certain kinds of lawsuits, which I'm not sure that's such a great idea. I mean, our democracy is an experiment, but I don't think his companies are protected. So, and actually, no, I think, for example, he's actually currently under investigation by the New York Attorney General for paying off a Florida Attorney General to not prosecute him or investigate his basically shamming people with his Trump University, that, you know, this was like, it was misrepresentational. Anyway, so that's part of what may happen. So what else? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. The important thing is to. All right. I was writing my family last night, and there's another saying that, and this is important because that, you know, this may have happened, you know, because things happen and maybe they shouldn't happen, but, you know, a lot of times they happen for a reason. A lot of times they happen to teach us something. So there's a saying that goes something like, the only thing that evil needs to prevail is for good people to stand by and do nothing, something like that. And so I think that the message of this, you know, election for people who, you know, who value decency and fairness and you know, and you know, just these good values that Trump is like the anti-value of, I think the message for this is like, you know, we think we're good. We think we're good people, but we're really not, you know, in a lot of ways. In other words, like, we're not doing enough to battle people like Trump and the ideas he stands for. And I think, you know, the one thing, for example, one very clear way to demonstrate that is this issue with animals. In other words, like, you know, you have a lot of quote-unquote good people, almost everybody I know, who they're, you know, genuinely good people. Naturally, nothing's up to us. Like, you know, we're lucky if we're good, whatever. But I mean, like, you know, almost nobody's a vegan, right? And like, the animals that we eat are essentially tortured in these factory farms, right? And all right, so like a lot of people who are religious will say, well, you know, in the Bible, it allows us to eat animals. And it's true. And eating animals per se is not really, you know, so bad. I mean, it's kind of like a way of nature. Other animals eat animals, whatever. But it's not, in other words, like, back when the Bible was written, you know, I mean, like, chickens had yards to graze in, and cows had their pastures. You know, it was completely different than it is now. And those animals back then lived relatively pleasant lives. So, you know, it's completely different now. It's like, it really is torture. I'm not going to get into it. You know, if you don't know about it, Google some videos on it. PETA has one called, I think, Meet Your Meat, M-E-E-T, your M-E-A-T. It's narrated by Alec Baldwin. It's, I think, 12 minutes long. But, so anyway, so like, yeah, the take-away message to this is like, yeah, no, you know, just as we delude ourselves into thinking that we have a free will, we delude ourselves into thinking we're good people. I mean, I've understood this for decades. I mean, I've spent decades trying to help end global poverty, because like each year, 4 decades, about 30,000 kids under the age of 5 die because of largely preventable poverty-related causes. And I mean, like, and this is horrible. I mean, why this happens to a great extent politically, economically, is because, you know, rich countries like us and a lot of European countries, one of the reasons we stay as rich as we are is that we basically keep poor countries in Africa, South America, you know, Asia, poor, so that we have access to a very cheap labor force. You know, if we didn't help these countries rise up out of poverty, or at least enough to so these kids wouldn't die, you know, 30,000 a day, then, you know, we'd have to pay more for our goods and services. So we kind of like, you know, as a country, as a people, as a world, as a you know, first world, we kind of perpetuate this horrible poverty that kills so many, you know, not just kills, there's a lot of illnesses that go along with it. It's really horrible. So, so yeah, we are not good people. And again, like I'm not saying this to indict us, because like, you know, the theme of this show is like the free will belief is so harmful because it pits people against each other. I'm not saying that we shouldn't attack Trump and totally, you know, bankrupt him, just make him, you know, because like, you know, for example, with our criminal justice system, we need to deter crime so that we have our laws. You know, if somebody goes out and wants to shoot people and all, we have to have laws against that, and we have to like punish the people who do that. So like, you know, to serve as a deterrent, so people will, you know, do that very, very rarely. So so basically, yeah, we you know, we need to be better people. It's not about blaming us. You know, we don't have a free will. And, you know, sometimes to be better, we have to be smarter. And when I say smart, I mean in terms of thinking, logic. In other words, one of the reasons why I've done this show, or one of the benefits that I thought could come out of this show, that I hopefully, I was going to talk a lot more about Trump, but you know, maybe we'll get back to him. One of the reasons I was doing this show is because, like, you know, in schools, elementary, junior high, high school, they don't really teach kids how to think. I mean, they teach kids how to learn, how to remember, how to retrieve what they remembered, and, you know, sometimes implement things and all. But those are different skills than thinking. In other words, like, well, let's get back to Trump. Trump's supporters really are not very educated. They're not very smart. I mean, like, you know, they're not very happy. That's a different matter. But you know, one of the benefits of this show is like, whereas, for example, with climate change, it's difficult for the layperson who's not a scientist to understand that climate change is happening, so we have to rely on experts for that, right? But for something like this, the idea that we don't have a free will, which is so world-changing. I mean, if people got this, it would be a different world. I mean, like pretty much overnight. And who knows, maybe this Trump thing will help people like realize. But the idea, you know, is that like as people think about this idea we don't have a free will, and try to, like, for example, some of us try to deny it or just argue against it, they learn how to think. I mean, I've led meetup groups in Manhattan. You know, it's called a meetup like every first Saturday of the month. I canceled it this last Saturday for the you know, election and all, but like, you know, basically since 2010 I've been leading this group, and we get together and we talk about this. And when you talk about whether we have a free will or not, it demands thinking, it demands logic, you know. And so like a lot of people come into this group and we talk, and they get an exercise in logical thinking, in strengthening their ability to be logical. So like, you know, relating this to Trump, I mean, like, our country, again, we're successful. We can do a lot of good things. You know, we can, my God, computers. I mean, this whole room, the cameras and all. I mean, we can do amazing things technologically, but logic-wise, you know, if we don't get that we don't have a free will, you know, that's a no-brainer. I mean, like, you know, if everything has a cause, then this chain of cause and effect makes free will completely impossible. People don't get this. Why don't they get this? Because their emotions override their reason, and that, so anyway. All right, let's get back to Trump. And I didn't know what I was going to do today. I thought I was going to talk about Hillary's victory, but that didn't happen. And so and this is interesting. Like, fine, we don't have a free will, right? In other words, everything that I'm saying, everything that you're thinking, and all has been predetermined and all. But life is still interesting because right now everybody's wondering, all right, what happens next? So anyway, let's get back to Trump and the effects of what would happen. All right, stock market futures. Last night, they actually stopped trading because the Dow Jones dropped by 5%. And after the 2008 collapse, they decided that in order to prevent another collapse like that, if the Dow Jones future drops by 5%, as it did last night, trading is automatically stopped, And it's a wise thing to do because otherwise this panic ensues, and So anyway, but the good thing maybe, because it's hard to know what's good in a situation like this, is that the market has regained, as of this morning. Now it's I don't know if it's in the black territory from being down. But it's a good thing, I guess, that people aren't panicking. Fine, Trump's the president. We got to deal with it. So, but more importantly, Republican policies, have they caused the 2008 recession, the crash. They're not good on the economy. It's another thing. They claim to be, and a lot of people vote for them because they think so. But the economy does far better under Democrats than the Republicans. This is going back decades. So, so what I'm guessing will happen is a lot of very rich people, some richer than Trump, are going to be afraid of the market, of their money and investments losing value, because who knows what Trump will do and whatever. So I imagine one thing that will happen is that this group that ordinarily strongly supports Republicans, will now find that it's in their best interest to oppose Trump, to just limit his power. So I'm guessing that will happen. Okay. Now I want to go back to the people who supported Trump. How do you explain that? They're angry. Okay, they're angry, and they're angry at our government because they're rightfully angry because even we Democrats, we Democrats are a lot better. We stand for fairness and equality, and looking out after people who need looking out for, much more so than Republicans. But we're not, not nearly as good, I don't think, as we should be, in part because our party is also controlled by very rich people. Like the Clintons. Hillary Clinton is a multimillionaire, so these Trump supporters, maybe, who knows, maybe there's a wisdom to them that they realize, well, it's not good enough to defeat Trump and just, be left with Hillary and the status quo. Maybe they're thinking to themselves that the whole, political establishment is so corrupt because it's so influenced by money that they're willing to take a gamble by attacking the entire establishment. And so, actually, this leads to another point. Fine, we recognize we don't have a free will, but we don't know what's going to happen, and we also don't know whether what happens is actually good or not. I've related this story, fable of this boy who's given a horse, and these three guys in the village go to this really wise person and they say, well, is this a good thing or is this a bad thing? And the wise person says, wait and see, So what happens is like the boy's riding the horse, falls, breaks his leg, you know, and so then the three guys go back to this wise person. Oh, I guess it must have been a bad thing, you know, because of what happened. So the wise person says, wait and see. So then what happens is like the whole region is thrust into a war, and because this boy, you know, he's like 16, 17, whatever, so he would have been drafted, or maybe he's 18, I don't know, whatever, to the military to fight. Because he's got a broken leg, he doesn't go into and so his life is saved, because, like, you know, his whatever. So anyway, so then the three guys go back to the wise person, and he says, oh, so I guess, you know, it really was a blessing, you know. But the guy, you know, the wise guy, well, wait and see, because then, you know, something happens. And so you get the point. In other words, like, you know, to a lot of people, you know, Trump's winning the presidency, you know, seems like, oh, this is so horrible. And in a certain sense it is. But so much good can potentially come from this. I was talking to a good friend of mine last night at about 2 o'clock in the morning, before it was, I think, officially announced that Trump had won, because she was freaking out. She was thinking that, you know, we would devolve into like a Nazi dictatorship and all, and you know, Trump's going to like kill millions of people and all. And basically, you know, one of the points that I was making is that, like, sometimes, you know, it's in our best interest for something like this to happen to awaken our morality. In other words, like, we're going along thinking we're good enough, whatever, and you know, and we're not, and then, like, we need a correction. It's kind of the first kind of thought that comes to my mind. You have a married couple, right? And let's say, like, the husband is neglecting the wife or something, wife feels neglected, and he thinks he's not doing anything wrong, right? He thinks he's fine. But meanwhile, their quality of life is deteriorating, just like she's not happy, you know, he's not really that happy, whatever. And so, like, she threatens to leave him, you know, and, you know, you think, oh, this is a horrible thing, or maybe she doesn't leave him, they get separated, whatever. And so he wakes up, he says, oh my God, I better change. And, you know, in this story, has a happy ending. He realizes the error of his ways. They get back together and live happily ever after. So, like, in this scenario, you know, we, the American people, and the rest of the world is watching, and I think the world can, you know, take our lesson. We have not been good enough, you know, returning to that theme. Trump is God's way of telling us this, you know, that within our population, there are a lot of people who don't care that Trump, you know, was inciting violence in his rallies, like, you know, hit him in the face, punch him in the face, I'll pay your legal fees, or mocking a disabled reporter, or groping women and just, like, sexually, I mean, I think 11 women accused him of sexual assault and all. I mean, a lot of people are fine with this, and, you know, I think it's pretty well acknowledged now that most of us, you know, either didn't know that so many people were so immoral, or that we kind of knew it, but we're in denial. So, you know, so now sometimes, for example, when let's say there's something wrong with our body, right, and we don't know about it, you know, we can't treat it, you know, so we go to doctor, and doctor says, oh yeah, this was wrong, so we can treat it, whatever. And this is, you know, a metaphor for what, you know, our American population is going through. There's something deeply disturbed about us, and Trump's gaining the presidency is our wake-up call to this. Interestingly, you know, there's this movie that I saw maybe about a year ago or so. It's called Minions. It's an animated movie. You should watch it, because what happens is you have these adorable little, you know, animated characters, so cute, you know, they're actually the good guys, right? But this film, this insanely immoral film, is about, they lost their leader, right? And they go on a quest to find, you know, throughout the world, to find a new leader, and they're looking for the most vile, evil, despicable being, person, whatever, that they can find to be their new leader. I mean, and this movie is being shown to kids. This movie is made primarily for kids. that will tell you what we're up against. That will tell you that, you know, sometimes people, champion freedom of speech. You know, they say, well, you know, you can't tell me what to say, whatever. But, you know, when you have, like, the media is very powerful, and when you have such immoral lessons coming out in film, you know, and these, what are these little kids who think this, who see this film going to think about goodness and evil and all? You know, this is like, you know, anyway, I think a lot of Trump supporters must have seen this film. All right, we're winding down. But, you know, I'm going to, like, as soon as this stops, I'm going to go into episode 2, because, like, this is going to be presented in Manhattan as an hour. And ideally, hopefully, if they can get this edited today, if we're lucky, then hopefully it could be taped tomorrow, and maybe I can have it on the internet by the end of the week. You know, it's Wednesday. Oh, actually, like, so I don't know if they'll have time. And this show airs on Wednesday and Thursday here in White Plains, but we'll see. But, you know, I want to get it up there. All right, we've got about a minute left. So, yeah, we're going to go right into the next episode. And, all right, what else? So, like, all right, happiness. I am, you know, I'm doing this show because of happiness, because the free will belief is harmful. It pits us against each other. In other words, right now, a lot of Democrats are like, oh, it's their fault, it's their fault, it's her fault, it's his fault. And fine, we can do that to try to figure out what's wrong. But if we do it without this free will, vindictive, punishing, blaming and all perspective, we do it more effectively, more compassionately, more kindly. And, you know, we probably, you know, we have to, in a certain sense, do that with Trump and Trump's supporters. But again, we still have to, like, create deterrence to people like that running for office, and you know, people who voted for him for voting. All right, so anyway, so this, like, concludes this segment, but I guess we're going to go right into the next one, and thanks for watching.